One of the most exciting upcoming releases this year is, of course, Obsidian's new game, The Outer Worlds. The game was revealed for the first time during the Game Awards 2018, and so far people are loving what they're seeing. The best way I can describe it is that it's as if Fallout had a three-way with No Man's Sky and Borderlands. It's got the whole post-apocalyptic wasteland thing going on, with elements of space and settling on planets layered on top. It's got that Borderlands-style sense of humor, and it's got many aspects that clearly draw from other games, but at the same time, it all seems to come together to create something uniquely Obsidian. Now, seeing as how Outer Worlds definitely shares a significant resemblance to Fallout, it should come as no surprise that people are pitting Obsidian's new project with Bethesda's past Fallout releases. It's hardly a secret that Bethesda's latest Fallout project, Fallout 76, was very poorly received, with the concept of a shared world Fallout game having garnered much skepticism when it was announced, and with the game completely botching the execution at release and far beyond. So when people clamoring for a proper post-apocalyptic single-player role-playing experience saw what Obsidian was working on, the general sentiment out there became that Obsidian is giving us the game that Bethesda won't. This mindset was further sparked by some of the title cards featured in Outer Worlds trailer. You may recall that at one point, the trailer highlights the fact that Obsidian is the original creator of the Fallout series, as well as the developers of fan-favorite Fallout New Vegas. The way some people interpreted these title cards was that they were Obsidian's way of taking a jab at Bethesda, as if to say that Obsidian as the originators are better at making Fallout than the company that currently owns the IP, their way of presenting themselves as direct competition to Bethesda's endeavors, and their way of flexing their own muscles to belittle the competition. However, in a recent interview with gaming news outlet Game Informer, co-directors of Outer Worlds Tim Kaine and Leon Boyarsky expressed that it wasn't at all their intention to use Outer Worlds as a way to put down another company's efforts, and that they aren't particularly pleased that their game is being used to bash other games. Here's the interview clip in question.
I remember telling a friend of mine it's disheartening when your game is used to tear down another game. When people aren't excited because your game is going to exist, they're excited because your game is going to show up another game. It's like, that's not what we're making this for. We're not making this to make anybody not want to play something else. We're making it so they want to play this.
That was not our intent at all. And the other thing is that we have been working on this game for a while. So people might think that there was some kind of strategy that we were developing or employing that was not the case at all. As we said before, making games is very hard. No one sets out to make a bad game. People spend years of their lives in very difficult circumstances, having to put everything they have into games and then have those games come out and not do well is a crushing experience. We had our own company went out of business. The fact that, people think we're trying to say something about another company's or another company's games that people have put their heart and soul into is not something that we're really, happy about. We don't really want to foster that kind of thing. We're really proud of what we're doing, and we're really happy to be able to make this game, and we hope people enjoy it for what it is.
The world's big enough for a bunch of different kind of games.
Yeah.
So me personally, I wholeheartedly believe Obsidian when they say that they're not in this to show up other companies and their games with Outer Worlds. I do believe that Obsidian's making Outer Worlds because it's the game they want to make, regardless of the comparisons it may draw, and they're not consciously setting out to foster an environment where people use one game's name to smear another. While I'm sure there's a competitive spirit at the studio and that they want to make the best game possible, while I'm sure there is a part of them that's thinking we want to make a game that will surpass and be even more special than existing Fallout games, I wouldn't say that spirit comes from a place of malice. If anything, they're going out of their way to keep things as classy as possible, using this interview to discourage people from using Outer Worlds as a tool to bash others and clarify that they're strictly focused on doing their own thing, which I respect. At the same time, it is important to understand that when they put out title cards that specifically highlight how they were the original creators of Fallout and how they're the developers of Fallout New Vegas, there is gonna be room for people to interpret that as a diss, especially given that this is the internet where the us versus them type of mentality is woefully prevalent. Again, I don't actually think Obsidian was going for a diss. I think more than anything this was their way of reminding people that their previous experience lent itself to a game like Outer Worlds, which is definitely inspired by Fallout, something they haven't been subtle about. But given that Obsidian has worked on so many other games and franchises they could have also highlighted and yet only chose to hone in on their work with the Fallout franchise that's now owned by Bethesda, it made some see that as a direct potshot. Another factor that greatly contributed to this unintended interpretation was the timing of Outer Worlds' announcement. It just so happened that Fallout 76 released a month before Outer Worlds' announcement, and it just so happened that Bethesda's game was facing all kinds of backlash when Obsidian unveiled a trailer for their brand new project, a trailer that happens to highlight the fact that they're the original creators of Fallout and the developers of what many consider to be the most narratively rich 3D Fallout game, New Vegas. Some people latched onto the timing and interpreted it as a calculated move on Obsidian's part, but according to Obsidian CEO Fergus Urquhart, who Game Informer also interviewed, that was all a coincidence. Here's the relevant portion from an article that was recently published by the outlet as part of their Outer Worlds coverage, which reads, quote, Urquhart says he's surprised that some people assumed the team at Obsidian would know back in 2015 when they started working on the Outer Worlds that the game's announcement would line up with a negative reaction toward Bethesda's Fallout 76 at the end of 2018. People even said things about our trailer, oh man, just slamming it home to Bethesda because we said the original creators of Fallout and makers of Fallout New Vegas. We have storyboards from July that said that. I have no ill will for Bethesda, I love playing Fallout games, we're not fighting for the same dollars. Urquhart did admit, however, that the Fallout franchise was on their minds when they set out to create Outer Worlds, stating the following, this isn't meant to be negative, it can probably be taken as negative. We really enjoyed making Fallout New Vegas, and people really enjoyed Fallout New Vegas. Bethesda's looking to take the Fallout brand in a different direction. There's nothing right or wrong about that, that's their choice, they own it, they get to do what they want with it. But in our mind, there are people that enjoy where Fallout was. That is what we wanted to do with the Outer Worlds, to give people that. And you know what? Maybe that's a bad decision from the standpoint of the number of people that will buy it. I don't know, people seem to really enjoy what Fallout New Vegas was, so let's give them an experience that's as similar as we can to that. So that's mainly where the Fallout callbacks in the Outer Worlds trailer stem from. They boldly wanted to state that they are striving to harken back to a certain type of Fallout experience, the old school experience, but under a new franchise and with a distinct Obsidian flavor. They don't see Outer Worlds as direct competition to Bethesda's Fallout per se, they see it as them making a product that calls back to an experience many people loved, that's sorely missing these days. The thing is, though, there is this understandable sentiment floating around that Obsidian is actually putting in the effort to give Fallout fans what they want, while Bethesda, who own the Fallout IP, are taking the franchise in an undesired direction. So even those who know Obsidian isn't intentionally going out of their way to put down Bethesda, there is still that sense of why can't Bethesda get Fallout right when Obsidian seems to be well on their way to doing so. Even if Obsidian hadn't included the Fallout title cards in their trailer, people would have still seen Outer Worlds as a direct response to Bethesda's lackluster handling of the Fallout franchise, and to some extent, that is what Outer Worlds is. Urquhart said it himself, he and many people enjoy New Vegas and what Fallout used to be. Bethesda's taking Fallout in a different direction, so Obsidian decided to fill a void that wasn't being filled. There is no question that Outer Worlds is a game directly meant for old-school Fallout fans, and on some level, the developers at Obsidian must be pleased that people seem to be reacting very positively to their goals with this game. But at the same time, I understand why they aren't happy that their game is being used to throw shade at another company and spreading the narrative that Obsidian intended this, rather than just being excited for their new game for what it is without throwing Bethesda into the equation. But hey, that is fandom for ya, and when another company seems to be appealing to fans of an IP while the owner of said IP isn't, this sort of thing can happen. This is especially true when we're talking about a once venerated game studio releasing shit like Fallout 76, an entry for a beloved franchise that's so unbelievably ill-conceived and broken that it completely tanked Bethesda's reputation in a very short amount of time. Leonard Boyarsky briefly mentioned how developers put their hearts and souls into the game's development.
Another company's games, that people have put their heart and soul into.
And while I'm not denying that there are individual developers who worked hard on Fallout 76, while I'm not saying making games is easy, even bad ones, from a consumer perspective, it's very hard to see that any heart and soul was poured into such an insultingly released game. Let's not forget that Bethesda knowingly launched Fallout 76 in an unacceptable state and charged $60 for it after months of hyperbolic marketing, not to mention the long list of blunders that followed throughout the past few months, which made it impossible to garner any semblance of sympathy. Any company that actually had pride in their products and cared about their fans, community, and consumers would have known better than to release a game this way. Urquhart put it mildly when he said Bethesda is looking to take the Fallout brand in a different direction. That's not why people are so upset at Bethesda right now. Many of us would have been fine with Fallout 76 being a different kind of Fallout game had it been a halfway decent product, especially with other single-player Bethesda experiences to look forward to. Had Fallout 76 been a functional product, people wouldn't have minded the game acting as a stopgap between Fallout 4 and whatever the next big single-player title might be, or the inevitable Fallout 5. But the thing is, Fallout 76 isn't a case of a company taking a franchise in a different direction. It's a showcase of a once respected company's woefully falling standards, which is why many are looking to other developers and games in the genre like Obsidian's Outer Worlds to ease the disappointment that comes with seeing Fallout and Bethesda fall from grace so meteorically, and it's in large part what's instigating this mentality that Outer Worlds is slamming it home to Bethesda and whatnot. With all that said, though, I do agree that we should be excited about Outer Worlds for what it is, and not because of notions that this is Obsidian's way of giving Bethesda the middle finger or whatever. I don't think the backlash against Bethesda and Fallout 76 is unjustified or uncalled for as long as feedback is within reason, and I don't think comparisons between Outer Worlds and Fallout can be avoided. But I do appreciate Obsidian's clarifications on their intentions, that they're focused on delivering a great game that people will want to play and aren't going out of their way to put anyone down, and I appreciate their general civility and humility as game developers. These are one man's thoughts on Obsidian's latest statements anyway. I'd love to hear what your take is in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.